Good evening, Commissioner Wilcox. All right. You ready? Great. Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the Troutdale Planning Commission for Wednesday, September 14th, 2022. If we could have roll call, please.
Commissioner Wittrin,
Present.
Commissioner Wydilla,
Here.
Commissioner Leamy,
Here.
Commissioner Prickett,
Here.
Commissioner Wilcox,
Here.
Commissioner Allen,
Here.
and Chair Stephenson.
Here. Okay, at this time, I would like to ask everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and Commissioner Prickett will be leading us this evening.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Any agenda updates this evening? And is there anyone wishing to speak to the Planning Commission this evening on a non-agenda item? Okay. All right. Okay, the matter before us this evening is case file LU 00132022 Home Forward. This is a type 3 application, and this is a continuation of the hearing we had on August 24th of 2022. Before we begin the hearing tonight, I'd like to explain a little about the Planning Commission and the procedure we will be following for the public hearing. The Planning Commission is an appointed 7-member volunteer body of Troutdale citizens. Members of the Planning Commission are Troutdale residents who've been appointed by the City Council. They serve 4-year terms. They're strictly volunteers and receive no pay for their services. The Planning Commission serves as a citizen committee for the review of land use applications and various land use related matters within the city. Items which the Planning Commission consider include uses of land, subdivisions, major variances, land use policy plans, and development regulations. For some land use applications, the Planning Commission makes a final decision. For other applications, they simply are making a recommendation to the City Council, who renders the final decision. Quasi-judicial hearings are held in accordance with Oregon law and procedures contained in the Troutdale Development Code. The hearing will proceed as follows. Staff will present their report, which include applicable criteria and standards for the matter under consideration in the land use application. All testimony should be directed towards these criteria. If you believe that other criteria in the Comprehensive Plan Development Code or other city land use regulations apply, you must identify these criteria and explain why they apply to us. Can I get you to mute there at home? Thank you. The Planning Commission accepts public testimony relating to the application. The applicant is allowed to speak first, followed by proponents, then by opponents, and then by any parties neutral to the application. An opportunity will be provided to anyone testifying to clarify any issues raised. All issues raised by a participant during the public hearing must be sufficiently clear and specific to allow the Planning Commission and other parties an opportunity to respond to those issues. Failure to raise an issue during this public hearing may invalidate a future appeal based on that issue. Prior to closing the public hearing, any participant may request an opportunity to present additional evidence or testimony regarding the application. The Planning Commission must grant the request either by continuing the public hearing to a future date or by leaving the record open for at least 7 days to admit only that specific additional written evidence or testimony. If the record is left open for the additional written evidence or testimony, any participant may file a written request for an opportunity to respond to new evidence submitted during the period the record was left open. If such a request is filed, the Planning Commission shall reopen the record to allow any person to raise new issues which relate to the new evidence, testimony, or criteria for decision-making. This hearing is a continuation, so we will be hearing new evidence or testimony relating to the application that we have, which is LU 00132022. And before we open the hearing, I'd like to, is there anyone that has any ex parte contact for bias, conflict of interest that they would like to declare at this time?
Nope.
Commissioner Wydilla, you were ill for the first meeting, and I understand that you listened to the audio and you've read the material.
I read the material, went through the material, had some questions about it.
Okay. And would you like to wait for after the staff report to have those answered? Okay, we'll do that. And if anyone's wishing to testify this evening, we have cards for you to fill out. Right?
No cards. There are no cards.
Okay. And so there not being cards, just a second. You guys good?
Oh, sorry, we didn't.
Okay, since we don't have cards, we will call you up in proponent, opponent, and then neutral parties. And when you come up, please speak clearly and say your name and address for the record. And please keep your comments to a maximum of 5 minutes per person. And when you come up and testify, if someone's already said something that you agree with, you can say, I agree with what Joe Smith said, and I want to add this to it. Okay. And so with there being no conflict, and yes,
Your staff are uncertain about the public testimony. Could we take a moment, maybe ask our, double check with our attorney?
okay. With Mr. Trumke?
Yes, please.
Okay, Mr. Trumke,
I didn't quite hear the question. If you could repeat that.
I'm sorry to interrupt. We wanted to double check that we are reopening public testimony tonight for the continuation.
Yes, this is a continuation hearing that will allow public testimony to continue. Yes.
Okay, thank you for the
Yeah.
clarification. Sorry,
because
we
there
were
may
unsure.
be, there'll be new information added, and so the public gets an opportunity to comment on that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, and with that, we will go ahead and open the public hearing for the continuation of file LU 00132022, I'm sorry, come forward. Okay. Mr. Lopez.
Good evening, commissioners, members of the public. The application before you is a continuation from the August 24th meeting for Home Forward LU 0013-2022. I can go over this just briefly. I know we had went over some of this big intro stuff last meeting. So this is for the Home Forward site located at the southwest corner of Southwest 2nd Street and Southwest Kendall Court. It's currently a vacant property zoned MU1 downtown mixed use within the town center overlay. Surrounding properties are also MU1 and medium density residential along the residential properties on 4th Street. This is just a exterior shot with a site plan that was shown at the last meeting. And I can briefly go over the application itself. So what is being requested is a variance to the off-street parking requirements within the MU1 zoning district, which states that a minimum of 2 off-street parking spaces per unit are required, as well as a site development review for the on-site improvements to the property itself for 3 3-story buildings for 94 units of multifamily housing. What is not being requested is a zoning change. The existing zoning will remain as multifamily residential is a permitted use within that zoning district. This is a list of the applicable criteria that was used to evaluate this application for you tonight. It is a type 3 quasi judicial procedure. And the decision criteria for the variance, this criteria A has to do with the special circumstances of the site, and the site does feature some significant slopes towards the southern property line. The topography of the site does create some spatial challenges specifically to developing the layout of the buildings on site, which in turn does influence the amount of parking able to be provided and the ability to fit that parking on the site, given other requirements such as landscaping. Staff finds that that criterion is met. This is a breakdown that we saw last time. For the required parking is 2 spaces per unit, which comes out to 188 spaces required. There's a few options that provide additional parking beyond option A and B. So option A will retain the panhandle part that is south of where the plaid pantry is currently, and there will be a total of 119 off-street parking spaces. There is an option that does allow for 25 additional spaces for option C, which will be 144 off-street parking spaces, which does bring the count to 1.53 spaces per unit. The criterion B talks about the parking study that was provided by and reviewed by the county transportation as well as public works. In order using that that study as well as our own research, we found that the parking would be adequate for the type of use, and that criterion is met. Criterion C, we use the Institute of Transportation Engineers Parking Generation Manual, which showed that for the parking for 94 units, 1.33 spaces per unit occupied is within the 85th percentile. So given the data and relevant experience, the variance complies with the intent of the provision to provide sufficient parking for the development. As such, this criterion is met. The applicant appears to have made every effort to include as much parking as possible by including a potential layout option that will add additional spaces while also meeting density, landscaping, and other requirements for the site. As such, this criterion is met. For the site development review itself, the application meets the lot area, dimensions, density, building orientation, and lot coverage standards. Architectural standards largely appear to be met through outright approval or through an administrative adjustment or during building plan review. All setback requirements have been met for this development, and the criterion is met. The proposal does not contain any required upgrades to any existing development because there is no existing development on the site. So this criterion is met as well. This criterion has to do with the landscaping and parking, and noted before they are requesting a variance to the off-street parking requirements. So this slide just indicates some of the numbers for the different parking options. They are meeting their landscaping requirement for this site. So this criterion is conditionally met with the approval of the variance to the off-street parking standards. And the fourth criteria for site development review has to deal with the prior land use decisions for the site, and there are no prior land use decisions for this site, so this criterion is met as well. There are 6 administrative adjustments to design standards being sought. I've referenced the code numbers as follows, and they have all been found to be reasonable and justified due to the site conditions and or conforms to the extent practicable with these design standards. The adjustments will help retain a cohesive design language and provide added privacy for the residents of the development and as well as in adjacent homes. This criterion is met. The proposed lot does meet the dimensional standards, and the consolidation of the 2 lots existing will not impact access or site distance standards. The applicant shall submit a record of survey, including the right-of-way vacation once it has been approved, if it is, at the city council level, and that is a criterion that is conditionally met. The applicant has submitted new documents to support their application with 2 new options. One option will add 6 additional off-street parking spaces, bringing the total to 125 off-street parking spaces, which comes out to a ratio of 1.33 spaces per unit. The second option proposes to add a commercial component to the space, which would change the use from residential only to mixed use. And that also would change the minimum off-street parking standard requirements, as well as additional other standards, to 1 space per unit. Staff still recommends approval of the originally submitted plan, which will contain 119 off-street parking spaces for a ratio of 1.27 spaces per unit. This will allow for an easement to be granted to the city for the potential 2nd Street Bridge to be developed in the future. And staff recommends approval with conditions as outlined in the findings of fact. And that's all I have tonight.
Questions for staff? Go ahead, Commissioner Medina.
Nothing now.
So the last option didn't require a new application going from residential to mixed use.
It would, the change in use.
Would require a new application. Okay. That's all I have.
I just have one question. Density,
One moment.
where are we at with that now?
One moment, sorry. Sure.
Take your time, we're all watching.
Believe the maximum density for this site is 104 units, so the proposal is just under it, 94. And the minimum for exclusively residential developments is 83. And that's to be built at 80%,
Maybe 92?
94 units.
No.
Oh.
90? And the minimum would be,
The minimum is 83.
so we're over the minimum a little bit. Any other questions for staff at this time? Okay. Commissioner Wilcox.
I have a question on the parking requirement. I'm seeing and hearing two spaces per unit. How's that different than the multifamily 2 1/3?
So any multifamily that is within the town center, it just goes down to 2 spaces per unit. But if it was to be high or multifamily outside of the town center, it's the 2.33
Okay,
for the guest space.
thank you.
Nobody visits in town center. All right. Did you have any questions, Commissioner Allen?
I don't.
Could I get you to turn your camera on for me? Let's see.
You don't like me to be in my office because it's too noisy, so I'm not in an appropriate place to turn the camera on.
Thank you. All right, with that, at this time, I'd like to invite the applicant forward, please.
Well, unless you have anything.
Go ahead.
Bill Lanning with NWA Architects. Thank you again, commissioners, for letting us discuss this project at the beginning tonight. I'd like to start by addressing a couple of the comments that we've heard from our previous meeting, and then presenting alternative option B site plan. We respect your time, so I hope to walk through this relatively quickly. However, if you have any questions along the way, please do feel free to ask. Alex, I was hoping you could bring up the graphics that we provided recently, starting with the site plan that is completely colored blocks. Yes. I also did want to, I think, clarify something that Mr. Lopez had brought up during his piece, which is that there are 188 spaces required at the 2-to-1 ratio. The code does allow that on-street parking adjacent to the property is allowed to be counted towards that amount. So actual on-site parking space that would be required to be 177, not 180. The last meeting, the comment was made that the site was not dissimilar to other properties within the area relative to slope and grade. Therefore, special circumstances for a parking reduction were not necessarily applicable. Based upon this, we provided the following graphic that addresses the encumbrances of the property which does reduce the developable site area along with the opportunity for parking. There's an enforced slope easement represented in yellow, along with an enforced utility easement represented in orange. The restrict the ability to maximize and include parking along portions of the west side of the property. The connection that we've been asked to make to 4th Street introduces areas on site where the drive aisle exceeds a 5% cross slope and would not allow parking to occur per code, represented by both the orange and purple areas. In an attempt to provide as much parking as possible, we have introduced retaining walls along the south and east property lines, as shaded in green. However, we're not able to maximize this area as we would if the site were flat. It's worth noting that the identification of unique site conditions either means that this is the only site in which these conditions exist, or that there are not any other sites with more extreme conditions. The adjustment process is available because uniformly applying standards across every site is not practical. For the above reasons, this is a site in which seeking an adjustment is appropriate. There were concerns over safety and security for residents that were expressed. The project is designed to meet crime prevention through environmental design principles, which balances safety and security while also allowing the development to be integrated into the community and not restricted by fences or gates. Attention is paid towards appropriate landscaping that provides buffers and not locations for people to hide. Visual sight lines that allow residents and emergency personnel to clearly see across parking areas and pathways, and eyes on the street, which place active areas within the homes, such as living and dining rooms, facing out onto outdoor areas so that there's observability by the residents themselves. The property will also have camera security in the parking areas and community areas, along with lighting that provides good coverage during the night. Traffic concerns were raised in the first hearing. Through the Troutdale Engineering Division, they requested a trip generation estimate during the pre-construction or pre-application conference, which was provided. The County Transportation Division has requested a condition of approval for a transportation impact study to look at the level of service and capacity of intersections in these areas, including those referenced in comments from the public. This condition ensures that any transportation effects from the property and development are appropriately mitigated. It's worth noting that this is a use allowed by right in the underlying zone and will generate less traffic than many others that may be allowed. There are also some minor building design standards that are being requested as adjustments. These are a result of unique site conditions, particularly the topography and relationship of the surrounding streets and properties. They also come from addressing concerns that we've heard through our discussions with city planning staff and the community advisory committee meetings, such as privacy for adjacent neighbors, as well as providing more natural light into the homes through larger windows. I realize that the parking variance is the primary concern with this development. However, if commissioners have any questions about these, we can address them further. Additional legal findings have been provided in the memorandum submitted to Alex, dated 9/7/22. I'd like to now walk through option D, which is in this option, the addition of 6 on-site parking spaces allows for other benefits we further report to the city and the district. So the design remains largely unchanged from the previous application, but we have looked to provide 2 additional spaces at parking area C, which is the south parking lot, by centralizing the waste and recycling area in one location at the center of the development, at the west end of the entry drive from Kendall's Court. There is also the opportunity to add 4 spaces at the parking end, at the north end of parking area A by extending it to the north, as represented towards the north of the site plan. This allows for the preservation still of a pedestrian connection to the city-owned right-of-way. It would allow for the potential of a future bridge connection or pedestrian connection to 257. This retains many of the existing larger trees to the north end of the property between the neighbors to the north and east and maintains existing bird habitat. It limits the need for large retaining walls along Southwest 257 and allows the buffer transition between public and private to be through landscape plantings and be better integrated into the community. Again, we are providing 125 on-site spaces with 177 on-site spaces required by code. So that is requesting a reduction of 29%, which does lower this to a type 2 variance. The criteria for a variance refers to special circumstances that include the characteristics of the site, as well as the intended uses. The unique site characteristics and the proposed use as affordable housing meet this threshold. Again, additional written findings were submitted in November. Now I'd like to hand it off to Laura.
Should we pause for a minute and take questions?
Questions so far? No? Commissioner Prickett?
In your parking, I noticed there was no handicap parking listed. And since you are promoting some handicap and senior parking, it's not been labeled anywhere in the parking. So I'm wondering, are they all gonna be? Are they gonna be special? There are some.
Yeah, there is handicap parking
Okay.
provided, and you're right, it was not listed separately from the overall parking. And it is difficult to probably see on the site plan that we provided, but within those site plans, there are symbols of the person in a wheelchair, and those are handicap spaces. So.
Thank you.
Anything else? Commissioner Wilcox? No? Okay.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for allowing us to return to present two new options to you for your consideration. The architects have presented with option D. We've worked hard to increase the number of parking spaces based on public input while staying true to the small town feel of Troutdale by not proposing one tall building surrounded by parking. Option D is our preferred option, and we hope the commission decides to support what you have all said is a great design with this addition of more parking. The planning commission can alternatively approve option E, which incorporates commercial space and as a mixed-use development requires only a 1-to-1 parking ratio. We've heard that parking is important, so in this option, we have requested a variance to exceed the maximum allowed in town center parking. Additionally, as I'm sure you know, Oregon's Department of Land Conservation and Development has passed rules that mandate that jurisdictions in the metro area cannot require parking for affordable housing effective January 1st, 2023. If necessary, Come Forward will reapply and make use of the new state provisions that remove requirements for parking. Come Forward remains committed to the Troutdale residents who would benefit from affordable housing. This housing will provide numerous benefits to your community, including ensuring that your community members are stably housed and can provide stable workforce to local businesses, which also helps to reduce traffic and the number of commuters. New households in the downtown core will add to its vibrancy and help support nearby businesses. Our project will provide the city with over 1.7 million in revenue from permit fees and system development charges, along with other public improvements. On-site services will be provided to connect the residents to TriMet's Lyft and rideshare programs to provide transportation options for residents that don't drive. Finally, Come Forward is an experienced owner and long-term community partner. We will continue to work collaboratively with the city for years to come. Thank you.
Any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Wilcox?
Will we be addressing individual variances later? Or would this be a time to ask about those?
You can ask about any of those. Yeah.
The one I'm wondering about in particular is one of the buildings says no windows on one side. Is that correct?
That is correct.
I think it was building B to the south.
Yes.
I'm wondering, would that leave some of the interior units with only one exterior window in the entire unit?
No. So because of the relationship and the location of those units at the end, those units are oriented to would be the east and the west.
Mhm.
So every room in that apartment would have a window. The reason when we could provide windows to the south, however, with the adjacency to the neighbor to the south, we wanted to respect that privacy. and not sort of impact or have that view necessarily onto their property. If, if that variance wasn't granted, we could meet the code intent by redesigning and adding windows, but we were limiting that out of respect for that neighborhood itself.
Okay, so every unit will have windows on 2 walls at least.
They will have windows in every room, every living room, bedroom space. So that may be on one wall face. There's some apartments that are not always on the end of the building,
That's what I was getting at.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
which means code.
Any other questions? Any questions at this time, Commissioner Allen? All right. If none, okay, thank you. This time, I would welcome anyone who wants to speak as a proponent to the application. Okay, this time I would welcome those who want to speak as an opponent to the application. Sir?
Thank you, Chair, Staff, City Commissioners, for continuing this. My name is Adrian Kester. I am a resident and property owner at 242 Southwest 4th Street, across the street from the project. I was extremely interested in what the applicant was going to come up with as the additional options. And I have to say, I am not encouraged in any way, shape, or form. Option D, increasing parking only very slightly, seemingly just in an effort to do just enough to get it into a type 2 variance. And option E, I think really needs to be considered a complete showstopper, because adding commercial interests into this property is going to make the already restricted parking situation in the property and in downtown writ large infinitely worse, and it's just going to confuse everybody. So it seems like I don't want to, I hate to go so far as to say it's a waste of time, because I know it isn't completely, but those are the only words I can come up with right now to explain what went through my head when I was reading the possibility of option E. So I guess that's my only additional comments based on what was stated in the previous session. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak as an opponent to the application? Yeah.
Shelby Stacks in 1820s, sort of under that. I'm disappointed in the different options because I'm very concerned with parking, and I thought perhaps they would come back with an option to reduce the number of units, so much closer to not pressing the issue on parking. So that is some comment. Just really would like to see less than. And again, I don't know that it serves well to put disabled or handicapped people on the hill, but we said that last time. So. And I do agree with Adrian.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? You had your hand up, ma'am.
And I live at 107 Southwest 4th Street. And in addition to parking, which I spoke about last time, having concerns about the number, especially the offsite parking towards businesses or on Southwest 4th. Southwest 4th Street is pretty much a one-way street, one way up, one way out. So I'd like to know if the city is planning on changing to parking on only one side of that street, or building sidewalks. The other thing I'd like to say is given the location of this site, and I know the zoning allows it, but I think the appropriateness of the site is, it's just not there. We're asking families to live in a place where I just can't imagine families living isolated from the community, from close by grocery stores, from public services they can access. It feels like they're being isolated. And I know that this is low-income housing. And I still am curious about any studies on an air quality during commute. Forgive me, I'm nervous and trying. They talked about each unit having an air handler of its own, but who's paying the cost doing that 24/7? They still are not requiring a fence along 257. And I have worked with children with autism. No shrubbery will stop them from running through it or climbing around it. It's, we talked about Althea's Park, Helen Althea's Park. And if anybody's walked through there, you know it's not a park. Is the city going to commit now to turn that into a decent park for families? Is Home Forward going to pay to do that? Are they going to build a rec center for teenagers to access? What are those kids going to do in the evening hours, after schools, in the summers? What kind of close by economic opportunities are there for these families to increase their incomes? There's a ton of questions I have, especially about where this site's located. The impact to the downtown businesses and the impact of those families and children. I feel like the old adage, and forgive me here because it's terrible, beggars can't, seems to be,
As always.
hello, seems to be the adage here. I feel that these families deserve a better site, a more opportunist site for them and for their children to become more of a community, not isolated in the downtown core between two busy streets. And if that makes me a bit of a bleeding heart, I'm sorry. Okay,
Thank you. Any other, speaking as an opponent? Sure.
Hello, Diane Castillo, right from Troutdale, and I agree with Denise. She's been a good resident of this city for a long time. I also worked at Edgefield Children's Center many years ago, so I appreciate her heart for the community and also the people that would go into a building designed by Home Forward. Again, I believe it was a lovely design. I would appreciate more historic components, as I'm on the Troutdale Historical Society board as well. When we're talking A and B, I think we're forgetting, or maybe not concerning some issues with, again, if the bridge is built, that will take more on-street parking spaces away from our current downtown. So, you know, that's assuming that the bridge is going in, and I believe that's what they're possibly assuming with A&B while leaving some of that area there. The pub that's on Main Street relies on the parking there. And I want to, as our businesses suffered during COVID, a lot of them, some are struggling. They lost employees that were full-time, that were experts in either job. They went elsewhere. They are still struggling. They're still hemorrhaging. Normally you keep 1 year reserve for your business. This was 2 years, and we still don't know what's coming ahead. I want to remind people that Sugar Pine is doing amazing. There's approximately 90 parking spots that they're taking full advantage of, which I don't begrudge. I mean, it's a great location and we get a lot of people coming from Portland and driving and people elsewhere. But that's why they're thriving. That's why there's a lot of employees. They even offer health insurance for their employees. They include that in the tip that's added on to the price of their goods. They are thriving for a reason. I'm not asking for 90 parking spots for Restaurante de Pompeo or the others, but it's just a consideration. We are a community. We would like businesses to remain there. As time goes by, as I said before, we just don't want everything turning into a service as in Salon City. We already have 12 or 13, there are so many to count, and I appreciate the services we do have. But as we like to walk or ride our bikes where we want to go, we want those businesses to remain there. I've lived in Troutdale for 31 years. It started as a small quaint town when we have a bit built. The general store owner would throw bird seed in the middle of the road. So we change a lot, and I understand that there is change, but the most important person that we should consider is our citizens, and also the livelihood and the health of those that go into the home forward building. As I stated before, I believe if you have a car, you've expanded your opportunity for jobs, for education, and all sorts of things. I care about the families that may move into there, but I think we need to be holistic about this approach. And I like the idea of collaborating. We should always collaborate, but I'm sorry to say that when option E was proposed and saying that if we don't accept one of them, that we will that they may wait till January, and then where no requirements is, let's collaborate, let's work together, but please consider the citizens of Troutdale. We live here, we care about people, we care all economically and diversity, but also I really believe that that economic diversity and of color should be dispersed. A long time ago, I'd asked some of the planners, I go, well, why are they not sprinkled throughout the different cities? Wood Village was building an apartment complex. I go, how about 5% there? How about the other apartment building 5% there? Why is it not dispersed? Because I believe in that the economics of the individuals.
1 minute.
What's that?
1 minute.
Okay. I thank you for your time, and again, I think we can collaborate and do something nice. We can work together, but let's please take into consideration the viability of our small quaint town that we want to thrive, and to care about these people that need to go into home boards that need a good site that creates potential and viability for them as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, wishing to speak as an opponent? Sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Troutdale. My first question is, I have a question. This project is made by public money or is a private money? Who pay for it?
I would believe it's
Tax money.
public.
Money. We already say the last time when it's parking. I hope so. This gentleman start to work in the project we want. Downtown Troutdale offer many services. We have a dental office. We have a chiropractic office. We have a vision office. Today I'm working my glasses and they do very quick. They give me my glasses. We have restaurants. We have hair salons. But we need parking. If they build another plan, they don't have enough parking, we go to suffer, and we need to find another place to have a business. Because if we don't have parking, we don't have business, and we need to go. I support 30 families. 30 people work for me. My youngest employee have 14 years old. My oldest employee have 62. All kind of people work for me. But if we don't have parking, we need to go. That is very important to consider what we say about the parking. Because You commissioners represent our voice in the public moment. Thank you very much.
Ma'am?
I hope I don't sound too scathing with what I'm gonna say. I wrote some stuff down to not sound too crazy, but my name is Sherry Winters and I have lived in Troutdale for nearly 30 years. I chose to live here for a few reasons, including small town feel that Troutdale offers. Over the course of these years, I've witnessed changes that have been difficult, but I understood they were necessary. Other changes have been negative and have been disappointing. I come today recognizing that your job is difficult and I appreciate your hard work. Troutdale has a sweet history of being its own community, not an extension of Portland. Portland is a hot mess. Multnomah County, inner parts of Multnomah County, way hot mess. Let's keep Troutdale away from it. And I apologize to you people up there that are commissioners or whoever from Multnomah County, but you probably don't live out here to appreciate the sweetness of our community. This land, I do not believe was ever designed to do what it's supposed to do. They're like the loopholes and catches or that kind of stuff. I kind of consider it crazy. It's very inconsiderate of people that own property around it. So this proposed development is not right for this area. Everyday services that we all come to expect are not nearby. It doesn't matter how beautiful you say it will look. It's just not practical. The claim that disabled and low-income seniors will be residents shows an ignorance to understanding the topography. Negotiating hills to catch transit? Do we need to take field trips to appreciate the hills? Do you want to push me up with a wheelchair? Just crazy. And how about a walker? An elderly person with a walker in potentially not so great weather, and I can imagine a fall, and they won't probably ever be living on their own again. Let's see. And then I think of the bitter east wind. Catching transit in the bitter east wind is no fun. If you've lived here at all, you know it. I still love Troutdale. Okay. I also question how these units will really help our businesses here. As Saul said, as many others have said, parking is not great, and we also have more businesses coming in right now. I believe the old city hall is an example of it. Also, there's units of 2 or 3 bedrooms, I believe, that are still suggested in this development. Undoubtedly, that comes with youth. Youth need outlets, as was mentioned. And there's this old saying, idle hands are the devil's workshop. I can say this, I work with youth. This area of Troutdale is a long way from real play areas. A small play enclosure will not cut it. I think in the end, as Mr. Di Pompeo said, it's probably not going to be very many businesses that stick around, as less parking, potentially more crime from idle hands. I could probably go on. I think I'll end it there. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else wishing to speak as an opponent to the application? Seeing none. Okay, anyone online wishing to speak as an opponent to the application? No one's unmuting. All right. Anyone online wishing to speak as a neutral party? Anyone wishing to speak as a neutral party to this application? All right.
Chair, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
I second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Public hearing is closed.
Mr. Chair, I have a question. We should probably open the hearing again for the question.
Is that for the
Regarding
applicant?
Fifth Street Bridge,
Okay, it's for the applicant. The question's for the applicant.
for staff,
Okay,
are we obligating the city for X amount of dollars on this project?
The Second Street Bridge.
I don't know, if we're obligating them one way or another. But it is a component of this project.
So there's a financial amount that the city would be obligated for.
I don't believe they're obligated to construct the bridge as part of this.
Okay.
But I think it's built into the design factors, right, and the layout as being part of this.
Yeah, we've been asked by the city to accommodate the potential of the future bridge.
Okay.
I think the client, has not asked for that. It's been through a request to the city.
No,
We're not asking Troutdale to put any money into this project. That's what you're asking.
It's in Troutdale's capital.
Okay. Thank you.
yes. Does that answer that
Yeah.
sufficiently? Okay. Any other questions? Okay,
Chair Stephenson.
yes, Commissioner Allen.
So I do have a question. I may be missing something here. On this this meeting here, it says option C is 1.53 spaces per unit. But in our prior meeting in August, it was 1.65 spaces per unit. So I'm wondering where the math went. Seem to have fewer spaces in the option today than we did in August for option C.
Mr. Lopez. Do you have any other questions, Commissioner Allen?
No, but is there an answer to that one?
Just hang on a second. And calculate this by hand here.
It might have been. I'm not seeing where that was.
Did you add in the on-street?
I thought it was in the original map. You know, street. Or we talking the additional on street.
To add into the map.
Yeah, yeah.
To make the map work.
Yeah, I'm showing for option C, a total of 144 off-street parking spaces to be provided, and that comes out to 1.53 per unit. I'm not sure where the other figure would have came from.
The other figure is from our packet dated August 24th. And let's see, it's an option A, B, and C. And what is that page? Is that page 15? Oh, no, it's page 16. Page 16 in our previous packet. It has option C 1.65 parking ratio. So we lost some spaces there somewhere.
You said page 16?
Yes, page 16. Okay, so it's 11 space difference between the two.
Be the 6 and the 5.
Yeah, that has to do with the on-street parking. I believe that's where that came from.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I think we said that. at the beginning.
I think they did. The 6 and the 5. Each. All right. Any other questions, Commissioner Allen?
No, not at this time.
Okay. I had a question from Multnomah County.
Do you want to step into it?
They would be considered reviewed and be correct. Yes, we can ask them. Yeah. Hey, good evening.
Hello.
You originally weren't studying Kendall and Historic Columbia River Highway, right? I was reading that correctly.
I do not know the answer to that.
Okay.
Rick, can you jump in? You're on mute, Rick.
Yeah, the original one was actually we requested Brynwood and Historic Columbia River because that's the more direct route that's adjacent to the property instead of Kendall. Kendall is a less used street, so that's the reason why we put it back. It was actually at the very beginning, the first time we requested it. And then when they came back with the traffic impact study, it wasn't there. They removed it. So we want it back in the study.
Yeah, I would just say, I would think that would be a significant intersection right there.
Yes.
And I would just say that one I'd be concerned with not only autos, but pedestrians and bikes too.
Correct. And I don't even think that we would allow left turn on Kendall because it's a very close proximity to the intersection of 257th and Historic Columbia River. And it's going to take, it's going to create issues there. I know it's saying that it's a very small traffic that's going left on Historic from Kendall. But like I said, you know, they need to do the study on Brynwood instead of Kendall. Brynwood is more used street than Kendall.
When you say Brentwood, are you possibly referring to Buxton?
Buxton, sorry.
Thanks.
Buxton. Sorry.
I just wanted to clarify that. And would it, that's kind of a, I know this isn't completely relevant, but since we're talking about traffic, the sheriff's department uses that as like a shotgun alley to come out for emergency calls, and they're typically going down and going left because there's less crime here, and they're going towards, you know, where other things are happening. But how would that affect it if there couldn't do left turns out of there?
Buxton or Kendall?
Kendall.
Which one? I'm sorry.
Kendall.
Well, that's a different issue because that's an emergency vehicle compared to a regular traffic. The emergency vehicle is not included in a traffic impact study. It's just the regular daily traffic that's included in a traffic impact study. So yes, it is allowed to go there to left turn, but like I said, you know, we won't recommend making a left turn on Kendall because of the proximity to the 257 and Historic Columbia River intersection.
All right. Thank you. You have
A follow-up question for that. So if emergency vehicles are not going into the study, but do they go into the study while they're not responding to a emergency event? Because there is a lot of sheriff cars going in and out of there all the day, every day.
Well,
all
it is. It's already part of the old study when that police department was built. But of course, now that we have this new development coming in, it will be added. This new development will be added to whatever traffic that structure, which is the police station, is currently having impact on Kendall and Buxton. So it's very part of the old study. What I'm trying to say, you know, I mean, every time you do a development, you do a traffic impact study per the square footage of that development or the dwelling unit per dwelling unit for the new development. And then it gets added to the old studies and compared it to the old study. And like I said, you know, and added to the traffic impact.
Yes.
Do you have a question?
Not a question exactly, maybe a comment. Since we're talking traffic, I'd be more comfortable with a fire gate at the 4th Street driveway of the project. I know the city apparently requested direct access. I'm not sure why, but I agree with some of the public comment that, you know, I parked on 4th Street to go to events, and it's essentially one-way street with cars parked on both sides. And someone else mentioned getting out onto Buxton from the cross streets, you know, 2nd or 4th, you know, during rush hour, backs up north and going south. It's just a continuous stream, making that free right turn. So crossing Buxton is challenging, you know, any time of day. So I'm just trying to avoid impacting those people that live on 4th Street with a bunch of extra traffic access in Buxton.
Okay.
You know, just a personal comment.
Okay.
Oh, I had brought that up last time about, did we have to have access or could we put fire gate in
I believe we're required to take access off of the secondary street. Correct.
I believe that may have been a comment required potentially from our Public Works Department. Travis might be able to speak to that.
Good evening, Mr. Holt.
Good evening. Sorry, I'm having trouble getting my video button to work here. Yeah, so just to clarify, Public Works is seeking emergency access through the development. We would be okay with an emergency access gate. It does not have to be 24-hour a day access as long as we have access through that gate. So if it has a emergency access lock on it that we have access to, that we can open when needed, then that would be acceptable to us. You know, the real key and the reason that we want to have access through there is for emergency response. 4th Street is the only access to the Public Works shop facility right now. And with the development of this site, that access through the parking lot is the only potential secondary access to the facility, and very critical that we have a redundant access in emergency operations. You know, if for some reason 4th Street becomes inaccessible, we have to be able to get in and out to perform our first responder responsibilities. But that can be done with an emergency access gate. We do not have to have all day, every day access.
And something was discussed tonight, and I'm just wondering if you could just clarify this for me. Are there any half-street improvements that are planned for 4th Street as part of the development?
Yes, Public Works proposed a condition that they would be, the developer would be required to provide the remaining half-street improvements on their 4th Street frontage, which essentially would consist of sidewalks, because the street is essentially built out other than the sidewalks.
And would any additional sidewalks be put in by the city or any other developer?
Well, the street is otherwise developed along its entire length. So there would, barring redevelopment, there would be no further sidewalk construction by developers that I would foresee. That does not preclude the city from eventually installing sidewalks on 4th Street, although that's something we wanted to do for quite a while, but it's very challenging because of the topography adjacent to the roadway and the way the homes along the north side were built. Putting in a full sidewalk along there is something we ultimately want to do, but it's pretty challenging.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Anyone else? Yes.
So if we approved a emergency gate there, there's parking, off-street parking on 4th Street for this project, right? X number of
Yeah.
parking spaces, so they would park on 4th Street and walk to their apartment. Okay.
Good.
You guys need a break or anything? All right.
Yep.
All right, or you want a break?
One break.
Okay. How about we take a break and we come back at 8:15? Okay, we can recess until 8:15. Okay, good evening. We're back in session. And commissioners. Any additional questions? No, I believe that there's an issue with option E being a change of use. Okay. I understand where you're going, but that's a change of use, and so that would involve really us going back to the review entities to look at that. That should look at plus or minus a little bit differently towards residential would be. And that's a pretty significant change for the application at hand. And so I think we are looking at, that would be us looking at D. Right? You'd like us to look at and evaluate this on D. D is basically adding 6, gets us to 1.33. 125. There's a D that's a 29%.
So I can double check.
These numbers in my head.
Yeah, it would be 29%.
Okay. So what we've done is we've increased the site parking spots by 6. And so that brings us to a 29% variance, and that would be 1.33 spaces per unit. If we're talking about parking. Okay. You would follow that one
The memorandum says 1.44
for D.
for D.
Page 1 of the memorandum.
No. Okay, I'm reading staff's memorandum.
Well, it's got Alex's name at the top.
And this one, it's 1.44.
Like 3.3 or 4.4. 4.4.
Still says 29%.
Yeah.
Okay. 1.44 with on the street. Waiting.
Mr. Stephenson.
Yes.
Actually, on that issue, I have a question based on our submission by Fox Ridge Apartments last September. They also did a study of Troutdale Terrace in particular, and they came up with a completely different number of spaces, number one. And based on their figures, they had 1.70 utilization at Troutdale Terrace. But Home Forward has 1.49. But they're operating under a whole different set of numbers. So kind of questions whose numbers are correct. You know, there are only so many spaces to count. So somebody's count is off.
I'll just ask a clarifying question. I'm guessing you grabbed that data somewhere. Did you do, you probably didn't do a physical count for Troutdale Terrace?
Global transportation did a physical count of the.
Okay. If you want 2 units, 2 spaces per unit, you get studio, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom. If you went 2 per unit, that's 188. And so we assume that we've got less because we've got studios and things of that nature and seniors and people with disabilities. So it comes down, but then the kind of the missing component, and I know we don't know exactly what that is, but we typically do 1 for 3 for visitors.
Correct, because as we've discussed in previous
Right,
meetings.
so I think
it's-
that kind of tightens this up a little bit when you factor in the lack of that.
Well, and the fact that they have to now include on-street parking as part of the parking isn't fair either, because you can't designate on-street parking to a specific site. The residents that live there have to be able to park. So if they say there's 5 on, let's say 5 on 4th Street, and they're designated for the apartment, they can't use that. The people that live there can't use it, technically.
Well, right, it's not, yeah, you're right,
It's
it's not designated,
designated.
it's free parking,
Parking.
basically.
Right, but that isn't fair that they can use that as part of the equation either, although it is probably.
It is part of the equation, yeah.
It shouldn't be part of the equation.
So Chair Stephenson.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I calculated a while ago. Okay, so the studios and the one bedrooms, if you give them each one parking spot. And the two bedrooms and the three bedrooms get two parking spots, we still need 162 parking spots.
And that's not counting visitors.
And that's not counting visitors.
So I think,
And there's a possibility that the three bedroom, they're gonna have three different tenants in each bedroom. That would have three cars, that's possible. But anyway, I see a minimum of 62. To accommodate.
And I also agree with one of the ladies that talked to us about safety along 257. I'm not sure if pets are gonna be allowed. Again, children tend to get away from you when you're not looking. And even if there's bushes, they may play hide and seek in them. But the fact that in the proximity of 257 with semis and commuters, and it doesn't mesh with something that can prevent that from happening, because they might not think it will happen, but it could happen.
could.
And there's no second chance. Once you get on 257, there's not going to be a second chance. And kids don't always think. I've worked with middle schoolers and I'm retired, and they don't think like we think. They don't see what will happen. They just do. They don't see the end result. They just want to do what they want to do at that specific time. So
I know some adults that don't think.
so that's still
You can
concerns.
say it nice. You know, so there'd be no fence. there'd just be
Right, there's
shrubs.
no, yeah, just shrubs, and shrubs not going to stop the crowd. And also it's a great plan, don't get me wrong, it's a great plan, but on a hill, it's just not. With no, like you say, no access to a grocery store or no access to other services that they have to go up the hill for.
Yeah. But that's also, I appreciate that, but that part's getting out of our box. a little
Right, that
bit,
is out of our box, but it
As
is.
far as criteria, but certainly I think it's something that the applicant should consider and probably does consider. When they're locating people is what's around there, how's it all gonna work out? At least I hope, yeah. Okay. I know we have a parking issue downtown because we hear about it often.
More than often. Oh, it's gonna get worse before it gets better. As new businesses move in, this immediate block.
Okay, and so, are you guys heading somewhere with this?
I don't think it would.
I can't see any of them that I
Okay, you don't like D?
don't think it meets.
Constitution.
enough.
Okay. So what we're finding is that the parking information that we have isn't sufficient to grant the 29% variance.
Right.
And so,
Chair Stephenson.
yes, Commissioner Allen.
So did we ever get a good answer for the, this is meant to be for older residents, right? And
No,
no,
what was it? I want to say 57% or something?
77% of homeowners, studios and one bedrooms can be seniors and those.
Okay. 77% of the studio apartments and the one-bedroom apartments are for people with disabilities or senior
Tend to
citizens.
be occupied.
Tend
by
to be,
people.
tend to be.
Tend to be,
Necessarily, they tend to.
tend to be.
well, did we get a good answer on spaces for people with disabilities? Number of spaces for people with disabilities, if we're going to have those kind of ratios?
Well, you're asking about like handicap spots to standard spots?
Yes.
That would be the standard ratio for the number of units that are there.
Does it make logical sense for the population that's being targeted?
It doesn't typically work that way. They have a standard that they want you to have for handicap spots, aisleways, and standard spots. The only thing that's flexible is compact or regular, I believe. Is that correct, staff? I think. Right?
Are not just the ones. Also twos
And the targeted population is not a consideration.
Not when we design, not when they design parking lot space configuration, no.
Okay.
So of the 132 parking spots, 6 of them are handicapped according to this map.
Okay.
Which is pretty low ratio compared to the 77%.
The only thing I can say about that is I don't disagree with you, but they're meeting the state standard that there is for those spots.
Yeah, I understand the rules, and also coming from my wife's worked with people with disabilities almost her entire career. And so it's I'm starting to understand why things are such a problem. We legislate it that way.
So basically. So you
Chair
take-
Stephenson, I was wondering if, I got some notes here, I'm not sure I've done the calculation correctly, but I was wondering if we could run the numbers at minimum density, which would be 83 units.
Correct.
See where we come up for a parking number at that level,
83 units or 2 would be 166
right? Then we got,
straight up.
so we've got what, 11 off street? Rather 11 on street. So that would be 155
155.
on site.
Be 155 at that point.
Okay. It's the numbers I was looking for. Thank you.
All right. Okay, so Alex. Actually, might be Ed. Mr. Trumpke.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Would you like us to take the variance first and then site and design review?
I think that makes sense to address the variance first and then move on to the site review. Mr. Chair, yes.
All right, thank you, sir. Be taking variance criteria first. Okay. And we just have to do the, if there's one failing, that's the one we'd have to do first. Right? I believe. Okay,
Is that a question?
yeah, you didn't catch it. So I believe the first one we would take, finding a fact variance to required parking standard, 6.1315. Fine.
Take it through.
Yeah, 200 pages.
Yeah.
You got it.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Prickett.
I move that we not accept the finding of fact for the variance required for parking.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for denial for finding of fact variance to parking required parking. And this is for application. LU 00132022. Any discussion on the motion?
Just to clarify, Mr. Chair, if this vote not to accept the facts passes, isn't a formal and final denial until findings are accepted by the commission. And that would probably occur at the next meeting if they're drafted that quickly. And I presume that's what you would propose to staff. So if it passes, this is not a final decision tonight.
Okay. It would be pending the finding. We would work with legal to write the finding, and then that would be officially approved at the next meeting, which would be on the 28th of September. Okay. And the clarification. Any other discussion on the motion?
Do we, just because it was added in as option D, do we need to do anything different, or we're good?
This, we have all of these as part of the same application.
Okay.
So this is
Wanna make sure.
added to the application that we have.
Okay, just making sure.
Yeah. Okay, any other discussion on the motion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Wittrin,
This is for denying the findings of fact, correct?
Right, so you would be voting,
Yes. Denying the findings of fact.
Commissioner Wadilla,
Yes.
Commissioner Leamy,
Yes.
Commissioner Prickett,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilcox,
Yes.
Commissioner Allen,
yes,
and Chair Stephenson.
Yes, okay, that passes. Okay, and then the next one we would need to do would be site and design review. Finding the fact for site and design review. And this would basically be the same thing because the criteria is not met for the variance. And so we would write a finding with legal in the same form, and that would come back to you on the 28th. Approval.
Chair, I'll make a motion that we deny the findings of fact for the site development review for LU 00132022.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. And is there any discussion on the motion that is on the floor? Okay, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Wittrin,
Yes.
Commissioner Whitedilla,
Yes.
Commissioner Leamy,
Yes.
Commissioner Prickett,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilcox,
Yes.
Commissioner Allen,
yes,
and Chair Stephenson.
Yes. Okay, that one passes as well. And so we will need to wrap this up into one big motion. Now. Okay. Where you want to do that?
There's additional reviews as part of this.
There is one more vote. It's the lot line adjustment.
Lot line
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
7.180B.
Somehow missed that. Thank you for pointing that out. I apologize. Okay, we have a lot line adjustment. We need to take up. And that would be this one.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I would like to deny the lot line adjustment.
Okay.
That work?
Do we need to?
Do we need to deny that one?
That one, I don't think that one would need to be denied. It's not tied to the variance itself. It's just eliminating that central lot line
Right.
that splits the two. So I don't think that could be tied to the variance
Kind of,
request.
Yeah.
I mean, if we could discuss that for a moment, I don't feel there's any harm in allowing him to make one lot out of it.
Right.
You might ask the applicant if they want a separate vote on that at this point.
I think they do. Okay, yeah. All right,
All right, I will restate that.
okay,
I move that we approve the lot line adjustment.
okay.
Now second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve finding of fact for the lot line adjustment for case file LU 00132022. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, Mr. Lopez.
Commissioner Wittrin,
No.
Commissioner Whitedilla,
Yes.
Commissioner Leamy,
Yes.
Commissioner Prickett,
No.
Commissioner Wilcox,
Yes.
Commissioner Allen,
no,
and Chair Stephenson.
Yes. Okay. Now, because we have a denial, we're denying the package.
Right.
Okay. Okay, that would be the next motion.
So we deny the application totally, or just
The finding of fact, conditions, and final order.
Just the final order.
Yeah, finding of fact and final order.
Chair, I move we deny the finding of fact and final order and decision for LU 00132022.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for denial of finding of fact and final order for case file LU 00132022 home forward type 3 variance. Site development review. Any discussion on the motion? Okay,
Commissioner Wittrin,
Yes.
Commissioner Whitedilla,
Yes.
Commissioner Leamy,
Yes.
Commissioner Prickett,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilcox,
Yes.
Commissioner Allen,
Yes,
and Chair Stephenson.
Yes. And so we will write findings for these. They will come back to be reviewed by the commission at September 28th, and which time that decision will be final. Okay. Thank you. Mr. Trumke?
The next item on your agenda is staff communications.
Yeah. So did you have any, or you just, since it's almost midnight where you're at, did you want to call it that?
It is getting late here, and I thank you for letting me join you this evening. And I will drop off. You probably don't need me, but I and the folks in my office will talk to your staff as soon as possible, starting tomorrow, to start working on these findings. So staff, please look forward for calls from my office. Thank you. And good evening.
Thank you so much for spending the evening with us. Sure you
Good company. You
Better to
folks,
do.
good company.
Thank you. We appreciate your service. Thank you, sir. Okay, here we go.
So updates for the department. As you know, we have new staff coming. You've probably met Chrisanne Washington now. She's our planning administrative assistant. You've been receiving emails from her. Maybe you've seen her doing packet drop off. Our building permit technician, Erica, has joined us as well. And on Monday, our new community development director will be starting, David Berniker. He comes from City of Gresham, their urban and design planning director. He will be joining us as our director here. So you'll likely see him at the next planning commission meeting. Some news from the Citizens Advisory Committee. September 7th, we had a guest presentation from ODOT on regional tolling. I do have some handouts here. If you're curious about these upcoming projects, we can expect tolling in our region starting in 2024 and 2025 along I-205 and I-5. There's time to participate in this and give feedback to ODOT during the process. So I recommend taking some handouts, and you could also watch the recording of CAC if you'd like to hear a direct presentation to our community. On October 5th for CAC, we'll have a guest presentation from Multnomah County concerning Southwest 257. There's a repaving and safety project coming up. They'll tell us more about it at that time. In the meantime, they are seeking, sorry?
What date is that?
October 5th at 7 p.m. with the CAC. So you're welcome to listen in. The county is also seeking some walking tour participants. So they'll take us to that corridor and show the corridor, show projects that may be happening there, and get feedback from the community. And especially, we're looking for some people with disabilities, perhaps vision impairment or other disabilities, to join the walking tour, as well as elected and appointed officials. So as an official, if you'd like to join, please let me know and I can help you get on the part of that walking tour. Or if you have anybody else to recommend in the community, please spread the word. Okay. At our next planning commission meeting, that'll be the 28th. We do have 2 hearings. I think there'll be smaller hearings than the last time we had 2 in a row. But we will be doing a zoning text amendment for the industrial zone chapter that will involve a slight change, taking one conditional use in the light industrial zone, changing it to a permitted use, and as well as general reorganization of the chapter to match the previous zoning chapters that we recently updated. And we will also hear an application for the 2nd Street vacation. I'd also like to invite you to a planning commission training that's upcoming. APA Oregon is hosting this. The presenter will be DLCD. The cost of the training is $20, and if you email me, we can get reimbursement through the city for planning commissioners to attend. This is a training for planning commissioners and staff. The title is Keeping Out of Hot Water, Land Use Decision Making for Planning Commissioners, Elected Officials, City Administrators, Planners. It's by Department of Land Conservation and Development, and will cover the basics of state and local responsibilities, the role of planning commissioners, and staff, decision-making bodies, ethical behavior, ex parte contact, quasi-judicial versus legislative hearings, processes, and legally defensible findings. I plan to attend as a newer planner in Oregon. I came from Washington, so I'm going to attend for a refresher. And if you'd like to come, if you're newer or even if a seasoned veteran, you're welcome to attend this training. And then transportation system plan, that is been referred with our recommendation to city council. They'll have the first hearing on September 27th and second reading will be on October 25th. You'll have the opportunity if you wish to come and give personal comment. All right. That's it for my updates. Any other updates from staff? Okay.
That's an impressive update list. Thank you. Okay. You can start.
I can start. Thanks. Nothing major here other than staff. Thank you for a great presentation. I know there's a lot of work, Alex and Melissa. Appreciate everything you guys have done. And from a commissioner standpoint, public safety is still a major issue on that committee. But we're still trying to pull comments out of, I'm trying to pull comments out of my own neighbors and trying to get concerns, and we're trying to get traction under that committee still. So if you guys have anything for public safety, please throw it my way so I could continue to try to get more actionable items underneath that committee, because I do want to make it a success. So that's all I got.
Commissioner Allen, anything?
I don't have anything at this time. I'll pass.
Thank you. Commissioner Pruitt?
No, just to thank the staff. I mean, you put a lot of time in this and it shows. Gave me enough information to make a good decision. So thank you.
Commissioner Okay. A couple things. I'd like to thank staff for all the work you put into this. And it's also tough when you make a recommendation and it doesn't always go that way. But sometimes that's the way it happens. But thank you for all your work. I want to thank everyone that testified. I'd like to thank everyone that's taken the time to be here and be part of the process. This is sometimes a little bit tougher than it looks because there's certain criteria we can look at. There's other things that we can't look at. And frankly, this is a tough one. And you heard the applicants say that if we don't take what they're giving us now, they're probably going to come back and build something with less parking later. But our charge is working with what's in front of us. And this commission felt that this was not in the best interest of our community as it sits right now. So we respect the applicant for their position, and hopefully everybody respects us for ours. I want to thank you, Councilor Glanz, for being on the call again. Which is but for punishment, as Councilor White is in chambers tonight. Thank you for being here. You guys do enough stuff. And that's a lot of dedication. Also, we were talking about public safety. There was something that came up at the budget meetings about looking at our police contract and our fire contract because of response times and other issues and things that have come up. And there was a committee tasked last night to look at that. So we will be looking at these contracts before they expire and trying to decide what we can do, maybe differently, maybe better, what we can afford and how that's going to work. But I think we're on the right track that way. Going down a good path. I'll just say I had the pleasure, David Bedecker reached out to me and on his own, I don't know why anyone would do that, but he asked to if he could meet with me. We spent a couple hours together. City Manager Ray Young was awfully surprised that he took the job after he spent 2 hours with me. I was surprised at that too, but I thought really good guy. And my first impression was good, and I think he's gonna mix well, at least I hope so. Because Mr. Dangan left a pretty large footprint when he left. And we'll pick up and move on. So with that, thank you all for all the work that you do to make the city better. And I really appreciate your time and dedication. And I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
Chair, I'll make a motion. We adjourn tonight's evening.
I
tonight's
second it.
Meeting.
Give a motion second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we are adjourned for the evening. Thank you.
Pass me down your names.
We'd like to.